Of allegiance, if we could stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Linda, if we have the roll call attendance, please.
Commissioner Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Fleece?
Present.
Maxbauer?
Here.
Thomas? Here. Richardson?
Here.
Stepka?
Here.
Friend?
Here.
Hooper?
Here.
Chairman Inman.
Here. Let it be known that County Administrator Dennis Loy is on vacation and is excused from the meeting. We will move on to the approval of minutes for August 18th. Moved by Thomas. Support by Fleece. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Okay, this is the first public comment. Does any member of the public wish to speak to the Ways and Means Committee meeting? Hearing none, we will close public comment. We will move on to the approval of the agenda. Any changes in the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Wheelock, supported by Commissioner Friend to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. All right, there is no special order of business this morning, so we will move on with the consent calendar. Linda, if you could read the consent calendar, please.
Sure. The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive and file. 1, Traverse City Place Brownfield Plan Amendment Update. 2, Child Care Fund. B, approval. 1, contract approval, Watershed Center. 2, contract approval, Teamsters Command Bargaining Unit. 3, Northwest Michigan Council of Governments Energy Grant Audit and Implementation.
All right. Thank you, Linda. Does any member of the public wish to have an item pulled from the consent calendar? Hearing none, does any of the county commission wish to have any item? Commissioner Richardson.
A1, please.
Motion to approve the consent calendar without A1.
Support.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Friend, supported by Commissioner Hooper to approve the consent calendar with the exception of A1. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Fleece?
Yes.
Maxbauer?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yep.
Richardson?
Yes.
Stepka?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Hooper?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Inman.
Yes. Consent calendar is approved, with the exception of A1, and we'll move that down to department action items. Moving on to number 8, department action items. We'll go first with the Grand Traverse County Sheriff's Office, the building bids. Sheriff and Danny. The three of you can get yourself introduced for the television audience.
Danny Brown, Facilities Director.
Tom Bensley, Grand Traverse County Sheriff.
Bob Somerville, AAI, architect.
Okay, gentlemen, you have the floor.
Thank you. Give us just a second. We have some
All right.
information to distribute to all the commission members.
How are you? Thank you, sir. Thank you. That's right. Morning, Bob.
Hi, Bob. Thank you. Good, how are you?
As you know, we've been discussing and had the approval to move forward with plans to construct a storage building for most of all of the equipment we have. Additionally, with a small office building there, which would house the recreational vehicle division, marine snowmobile and ORV. We've got a purchase agreement for a piece of property in the Hammond Industrial Center, and the board has wanted us to refrain from the actual purchase until the actual total cost of what the construction and property and so on would cost. Mr. Somerville is the architect for the project, and we sent out and advertised for bids. Those were received and opened a week ago, this past Monday on September 9th. And what you have is the bid tabulation form, which indicates the bids from the different contractors. There were a couple of options in that bid. Primarily, the first was a wash rack or a wash bay attached to the building where we could pull in and wash patrol cars. The officers could wash cars and have 24-hour access. The other was an inside room block construction for locked storage. So when you see the alternate 1 and alternate 2, if we decided against those, the price would be reduced. I also provided you, just as a refresher, the floor plan, the lot plan for the building, and 2 elevation views, the south and the east elevation. The east elevation is the east side of the building, and as you drive by, that's the profile you would see.
Sheriff, can you move a microphone in the middle for you? There you go. Thank you.
Again, the east elevation is the view you would see if you drive by on the street. The south elevation is the south side of the building, and where access to the storage area or the vehicles and equipment would be accessed. The wash bay is the first door left to right. The 4 doors lead into the storage area. The garage door, which is furthest to the left on that south elevation, would be that wash area. Sat down with Mr. Brown and Mr. Somerville on Monday, reviewed the bids, and Mr. Somerville has provided a cost estimate with for the building, for the project, and down at the bottom he has the alternates there. And Mr. Somerville and Mr. Brown, myself, would answer any questions you have. You have anything to add?
Not really.
Okay.
Okay, questions from the commission. Commissioner Wheelock.
Sheriff, the only question I'd have, just because we're in budget situation, is have you budgeted anything, or have you come up with an estimate, or you or Danny, about the maintenance cost of this building, utilities and, the other maintenances that'll be required?
I haven't. I don't know if
No, I
you've
haven't either.
figured that. At this point, no, for next
We tend
year.
to think about building buildings, but we forget about what it costs
Right.
to own them and to maintain them and to operate them. So
Right.
I just had to ask if anyone had figured.
Obviously, there will be a cost.
What's the ballpark of that cost?
Well, we'll have some plowing to do there. We'll have some custodial efforts there for the offices. Very minimal, though. A lot of time, this building will not be occupied. Is that correct? There.
Right.
And so that'll be minimal. I would say probably under $3,000 or so.
Plus utilities.
Well, the utilities, that's an unknown. It depends on usage, of course.
Commissioner Max Bauer.
Sheriff, when do you anticipate construction would begin?
Should begin this fall.
Currently, we don't own the property.
Construction started on a lot about 3 doors down from this week. I drove by there yesterday. I said, Christ, did you get started before we even approved it, or?
No, that's Hallmark, excuse me, that's Haggerty's building there. We don't own the property yet. We haven't been able to purchase it. The board wanted the total price. Now we have that. I talked day before yesterday with the landowner, and who has been patiently waiting since, I think, February. I talked to Mr. Cooney. I said, how long would it take if the board gives the okay? Obviously, we can't do anything till we own the property. He thought it would be a fairly short, simple process to make that purchase.
Commissioner Hooper.
Okay, so at this point, all we're doing is approving the purchase of the property and not the projected cost totals for the building?
No, it's to accept accept the bid, okay? Accept the bid, and obviously, we would also need the approval to purchase the property. The property purchase, the property cost is not in here.
What
Yeah,
was
this
that
is
cost?
69.
Yeah, it's at the bottom, but it's not added in.
Oh, right, it's not added in.
Oh, not added, right.
It's not added in,
Now, in this total of the projected cost, is that covered now by your ICE monies?
yes.
Okay.
That's the projected, we have said all along that some of the seizure money that we got would be used for the building, and we had the board's approval on that.
Yes.
Now, I'm hoping that there's a very, in my opinion, very large contingency in there. Not necessarily large, but that's a lot of money. And we're hoping, because of the design, which is very simple, that none or very little of that would have to be used. It's just a block building with a flat roof and a small office. It's not anything complicated. It's not a remodel. We know what's there. It's pretty, as Mr. Somerville says, pretty clean building.
What were your original, the amount you're originally anticipating spending on this project?
Well, we really didn't know where to go until we got some estimates. I know with what I did with the amount of the seizure money that we had, penciled in some, one of the things we purchased was tasers, and something else we purchased was recently were some laptops for the Detective Bureau. We're in the process of purchasing antennas and stuff for our upgraded mobile data terminals to go with the air card. So I just penciled in some pretty much guesstimates on that. We had no real idea on what the cost of this would be. Obviously, this is a block constructed building. It's not just a simple pole barn with a, unheated cold storage. So we really didn't have any idea of what this would cost.
Sure.
This was kind of the big unknown.
Sure.
Okay? Now with these costs, we know where we are with our funds. It's coming a lot closer. This does not use up the balance, of our funding, okay? Because there's some other things that we hope to purchase also. Obviously, this is a big chunk of it. Our total revenue, and it is complete, I think was $1,122,000 or $123,000, right in that neighborhood.
Based on that, I'm sorry,
Go
two
ahead.
follow-up questions. Just based on that, some things I was thinking about when you were talking is, number one, anytime you go to purchase something, you're right, it's an unknown and you don't have an idea. But our kind of best guesstimate, in absence of knowing the exact figures, was somewhat less than this. I think we were talking at some time about like the $500,000 or so.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But so,
Had no
and
idea.
typically when you don't know, and then you go out and find the prices, sometimes you kind of think, does that resonate with me? Am I going to continue down that path or not? Given that this is, quite a bit more than what you had anticipated, Have you had any second thoughts about constructing the facility or other alternatives to use with the ICE money?
Well, I understand it's a large amount, and we could say, nope, that's too much. We don't want to spend that much. Let's just put up a pole barn and go with that. I think that, yes, we have considered, there's other options to spend that money. They surely are not as large as this, okay? We think this is a good building. It's a block building. It's not just a pole barn. We surely could go back and look at alternatives if you'd like to change the design. Okay.
Is this
Try a different design, a cheaper construction type.
Is this how you want to proceed with those funds?
I think it's a good use of the funds.
The second question I have for you is, I would be interested to see, based on that 1.12 million, just kind of a detailing of where the money has been spent and what other items will be.
I do have that
coming out
if
of
you.
that. Oh, okay, that'd be
I
great.
mean, not to pass out, but I can tell you, and
Yeah.
Dean will keep me on track if I made a mistake. I think
We could always provide that summary if the sheriff doesn't have it this morning. Off the top of my head, I could not
I have the
provide it.
individual expenses so far. What is not in here is, I believe it was last Wednesday at the Public Health and Safety, you approved the purchase of some antennas for the mobile data terminals. We have spent about $101,000.
Okay.
Okay? What we did purchase were laptops for the Detective Bureau, displays or screens and keyboards, and some software, Microsoft Office for the software. We purchased 61 tasers. And cartridges and targets. We purchased computer software and hookups for our accident investigation team, their reconstruction team and investigative team. We made a $10,000 contribution to the Children's Advocacy Center, and the final is the antennas from last week. So according to my figures, that's about $101,000 that has been spent.
So after, with your ICE money, after what you've spent and after the purchase of the building and the property with the contingencies, you'd have about another $170,000 left in your ICE money then?
We hope it's going to be more than that.
Okay.
One of the things that we hope to purchase with that, a couple of things which are big ticket items, and we have money left, would be and it just depends on the funding, an electronic shooting training system, where on a large screen different scenarios are presented to officers, and one of the options that is available with that is a shoot-back system where you get shot at. The other is a new dive van. The one we have now is, we've outgrown it, number one. It's 30 years old. It's still in good shape. We don't plan on getting that. We plan on converting that. That's a large ticket item. And the final thing is that with the air cards, we planned to use seizure money to pay those operational charges forward. I mean, not all at once, but to support that system. And we hope we'll be able to do that for 3 years.
And in your budget for 2011, you didn't have any capital expenditures in the regular budget, right?
I don't think any made it to the budget.
Right.
We had some, but they're not there now. Typically, though, the largest, obviously, capital purchase in our budget is vehicles. So I don't think what we asked for is still there.
Okay,
That is correct.
But you can give it back to us.
All set?
thank you.
Commissioner Fleece, did you have a question?
Yes. What's the cost per square foot?
The building, I don't have a calculator. The building, the storage area is 6,000 square feet. The office is 960 square feet. The wash rack is 600 square feet, so that's 7,560 square feet.
Is the main storage area, the 62 by 102 heated?
Yes. And I believe that's infrared heat.
Is this building going to be energy efficient? I would think that being masonry, it wouldn't be.
It's a standard weight concrete block with foamed in insulation in the cells. Pretty efficient, that's pretty long. We use it on a number of fire stations, constantly, garage type vehicles buildings.
And why a flat roof instead of a pitched roof?
It's not literally flat, it's sloped a quarter inch per foot to roof drains, with drains internally.
But basically it's flat roof.
Essentially it's flat, but it's not really.
Why would we do that instead of a pitched roof?
Because we don't have
Swing the
to
mic.
deal
Can you
with-
wheel the microphone
It's a
over?
large building, and if you build a pitch roof, you're building a huge amount of volume above the space, which already has high ceilings. That's of no real value. And then we have to deal with water runoff management and what to do with that. You got water dripping off over the overhead doors and so on. So we collect all that water on the roof at roof drains, bring it down inside the building where it's heated, and then outside to water retention areas.
Ice.
What's the height of the main storage area?
16 feet. The overhead doors are 14 feet.
12 by 14s.
Yeah.
You know, originally,
Okay.
Sheriff, when we talked about this building, I was under the impression that you were going to build a building that would be down the road available for resale, so the money could go back in the ICE fund, and perhaps whatever's going on then, you could utilize those funds for a better use. But as I look at this building and what's available on the market today, and I realize that you picked this location because of the location, that location may be, I would question the amount of money that's going to be spent to build this building, you being able to get that money out of it for just, you know, there's a lot of buildings out there for sale that are a heck of a lot cheaper than this.
Well, as you know, we looked at about 19 different locations and buildings. They were, too far away or not big enough, would, at that time. And at that time, when we couldn't find what we wanted, okay, then we decided to proceed with building a new building. After we decided to go down that road, I got a few calls from realtors, says, hey, where are you in your process here? I got this building. And I looked at a couple of different buildings. And I suppose that today I could go look at 3 or 4 more buildings that weren't available a few weeks ago. If you wish, we can continue to look.
Well, no, it's just,
But
the only reason I asked the question is, originally I thought we were talking about unheated storage, cold storage. And you know, all of a sudden now it's heated. It went from pole-type construction to a masonry. And
Originally,
frankly, I'm shocked at the price.
yes, you're right, we're looking at cold storage, or some heated and some cold. We don't need it all heated, you know, to store some things in the winter. And we talked about dividing the building into, you know, two sections. That kind of limits, you know, a warm area and a cold area. Some of the stuff that we're putting in there does need to be kept at, this isn't going to be 80 degrees. Obviously, in the wintertime, it's just going to be warm enough to melt snow off vehicles and, you know, have them dry. And we thought that, you know, splitting the building in, of this size, okay? Originally, we started at 4,000, roughly 4,000 square feet also. And then after we made cutouts of all the vehicles and moved them around on a piece of paper, it was pretty full. So we expanded the size, and if we, you know, a few years down the road, this is going to be pretty full. Again, some of the buildings we looked at had encompassed the entire property they were on. There was no room for any outside storage of whatever we wanted to put outside that didn't need to be inside. And it is a large price. It's more than I had anticipated, and that's why we're here today. Here's the price. And if you want us to take another route, we surely can do that.
All right, Commissioner Hooper, did you have something? Then we'll go to Commissioner Thomas.
Actually, I was going to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I would move that we accept this bid as presented.
Is there support?
Support.
All right. Moved by Commissioner Hooper, supported by Commissioner Thomas to approve the bid as presented, and that amount would be Sheriff $762,681 and the property,
Plus the property.
plus the property, $69,900? Okay. Questions? Commissioner Fleece.
If we're approving the bid, who's getting the bid? Who would the contractors be?
Hallmark Construction was the low bidder. We've had post-bid interviews with the low bidders in all three categories. I bid the general, mechanical, electrical trades all separately.
And what about the mechanical contractor?
D&W Mechanical, TNT Electric.
Okay.
Okay.
They're all local contractors. I don't think any of the work being done is from
No,
out of the area.
prime bidders and the subcontractors are all from Grand Traverse County.
Commissioner Maxbauer.
Sheriff, could you refresh my memory and tell me how long you have to spend this money before you lose it?
It used to be 2 years, now it's, they changed and relaxed that to 3 years. The largest share of the money came in about a year ago, this past March. That was $690,000. There had been some prior to that. We received a little after, and then I think it was June, maybe, I don't have it right in front of me.
Okay, so
The
the
final-
large share was about a year and a half ago? Is that what I'm hearing, a year ago last March?
Yes,
Okay.
right, correct.
And we won't expend this money until the building is completed either, and that's 6 months from now.
Okay. Also, Commissioner Thomas and Commissioner Fleece.
Well, I was just going to say that, going back to what Larry asked about heating the building, a building with the capability of being heated is a lot more marketable if you have to get rid of it, or if you want to get rid of it, than a cold building. You know, you don't have to turn the furnace on, but if it's not there, it becomes a problem for a lot of customers, so.
Okay, Commissioner Fleece.
On the bid, is the bid based on the omissions or including the omissions? Is it a total bid on, say, the general contractors? For example, Hallmark bids 531. If they omit the wash bay, it's 36,100, you subtract. Did you figure it out completely?
The alternates are deductive, and you can pick and choose none or one or two of them. The number that's, the top bold number, 665, includes the base bid, which includes the items, the wash bay and the storage room. Those are included in that price. If we want to eliminate those two items, those numbers are at the bottom of the column. It would be a credit against that 665, reduce that by about 56,000.
I think the total amount we'd be doing, I think if your motion is, if I understand your motion, it would be on the $832,181.
Yeah, kind of projected total cost plus the property.
Right, yeah.
Right. And again, there's a, did you come out with the square foot price?
It's about $89 a square foot, and that includes site work, which we usually don't use in the square foot comparative number, but that's a pretty good price for that total project.
Now, if I understood you correctly, you said from the top number here to 665, 181, if we don't do, if the sheriff decides not to do the wash bay, you would subtract 46,927?
Correct.
Where'd that number come from?
We bid them that way. We asked the contractors to give us firm prices to eliminate those two items. So those are bid numbers, if you will. They're not estimates.
No, I'm talking about omit the wash bay. You said Hallmark Construction, right?
Hallmark had a piece of that, but to get
Yeah,
that,
but you'd have
to
to
get to the
deduct off
46, you have to
mechanicals.
add the deduct from Hallmark, the deduct from D&W for alternate one, the deduct from TNT Electric for alternate one. Those three add up to 46.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Wheelock. I'm sorry, Commissioner Friend, did you have any more?
I just had two quick questions.
And then Commissioner Wheelock.
Refresh my memory, I'm sure that you went over this when the property was brought to us before, but at 69.9, you obviously looked at not only what else was for sale, but you did look at past sales in the past 6 months.
I have,
Sorry to ask you to remember a detail from some time ago, it's just that
a couple of things.
the market is not that great, so I'm more interested in
And
what's
then Sheriff, can you
sold
move the
versus-
microphone closer to where you're at? Keep wiggling it back and forth, if you could.
Sheriff, I have paper on this.
As far as the property cost, they, don't ask me why, but they figure a square foot a price for commercial property, okay? We purchased the property for, proposed to purchase the property for $1.75 a square foot. Where Commissioner Wheelock saw construction, the Haggerty property, and this is one lot, they purchased 4 lots, and they paid $1.94 per square foot.
In the same commercial?
200 yards away.
Industrial. When did they purchase that?
I can't tell you exactly. It was this spring or early summer because they have started construction there.
Okay.
So we paid $1.75. They paid $1.94.
Okay, and which was a relatively recent purchase, it wasn't 2 years ago?
Oh,
they
no,
purchased
it was this spring. Now, according to a realtor who I checked with, he backtracked, told me that in 2006, the property was purchased by the current owner for $97,750. So I think the property itself is a fair or good price. Back to the heating costs. Kingsley constructed a 50 by 80 building for their Department of Public Services. which would be 4,000 square feet. They have forced air heat in that building. They also have a 960 square foot office area in there.
I've been out to that
And
building.
I checked with them, and they indicated that the cost to heat that building for a year was $5,480. That was their heat cost, for what that's worth.
And it-
Kingsley's farther south.
It's warmer down there.
That's going to be coming out of, and whose budget would that be coming out of, facilities or sheriff?
Yeah.
Facilities? So, Danny, do
Oh,
you?
okay.
Danny,
It will definitely come out of the county's budget. It would make sense to include that in the facilities fund budget to be consistent with what we've done with all of our other facilities. But as we mentioned or heard earlier, that is not currently built into the 2011 budget.
Danny, do you support the purchase of this property and building for the purposes and at this price and knowing what we were just talking about, the heating costs?
Yes.
Okay. Last thing is, real quick, tell me again, you're housing the cars out there, so your marine will be out there, snowmobile?
Well,
How much will
in
you-
the, what,
I'm
what
understanding.
we will, yeah,
That
what
your
we'll
marine and
house out there,
snowmobile
what we'll
out there.
house out there, number one, and we'll operate out of there for the marine, snowmobile, no RV. Obviously, marine, no RV in the summertime, snowmobile in the winter. But we will have all the boats, our dive van, we'll have our accident investigation van, we'll have radar trailers, we will have possibly another, a larger dive van in there. We will have emergency response, ER team vehicle or vehicles out there. Now, again, as recently as a few years ago, we had stuff, I think, in 6 different locations. This will put it in one. Those are things we'll have in there. And again, the heat will be, in the wintertime, minimal. I don't know at what temperature, but at least it'll be warm enough to keep those things warm, which we need to keep warm. And it will free up the entire garage at the jail for the Corrections Division.
Okay.
So the total cost of this project, you would add the 762 and the 70 for the land?
Correct.
So you're at 832,581?
That's with $50,000 contingency in there.
So you'd be
That's
at-
also with,
You'd be at
equipment and-
782 if you didn't spend any of the contingency, then, correct?
well, there's some other possible savings. He has an equipment allowance in there of $3,500, $5,000 for furniture. Mr. Brown said he would give me all the furniture I could take because he needs more room for more of his stuff. That cost would be minimal. The other thing that maybe Mr. Somerville could comment on in that bid is the site utilities and allowances. That's $30,500. If that's not all used, obviously, that would be a savings. And I sure am hoping that it was designed properly, is built properly. We don't have 150 change orders like they did at the Hall of Justice, and if not the majority of that contingency, we will keep. Now, again, we have the possibility of saving $47,000 on the wash bay, all right? Well, that's kind of up in the air. Our thought is, boy, that'd be handy. It's open 24 hours. We can use it any time. We wash this stuff. If it's dirty in the winter, it goes right in the building. It's right there. It's dry and clean. If we don't build it, it'll probably never get put back on there. It's one of those things, we can plan for it, we can run the electrical and the plumbing and everything we need to do, and just not put it up. But I'm afraid that, if we don't put it up, it just won't get done.
Commissioner Wheelock, you have a question?
Sheriff, if my memory serves me, this also includes basically fencing the rest of the property and having some outdoor storage, correct?
It includes it would be west of the actual wash bay, a carport there to put some cars under the, I think there's room for 4 or 5 cars there. The remainder of the property will be fenced. It'll be a chain link fence that you can't see through. They put the plastic strips in there. So we can store fleet cars there. We can store whatever
Right,
we want
I noticed the
outside.
fencing piece in here, and
Yes.
I was sure my memory
Yes.
was that we were going to fence the entire area
Right.
so as that we could have some outdoor storage there too.
And that area is not going to be paved at this time. It's going to be gravel.
I believe, from my perspective anyway, this construction is very consistent with industrial-type buildings, particularly in that area. And that industrial development seemed to take a long time to get started selling, but over the last year and a half, 2 years, there's been quite a bit of activity in there. So, I think the sheriff's right. Down the road, if we do something different, I believe this building will be marketable in this location.
Well, the other 2 things. Number one, I learned Monday, I believe it was, that Charter Communications is putting up a 21,000 square foot building right in that same development area. So you're right. Marketable down the road or for other county use, at some point in time, there will probably be a new sheriff's office, jail, combination, or whatever the case may be. I'm sure Mr. Brown would love to have this building. I'm sure that maybe down the road, the Commission on Aging may have use for larger space. They're out at the old dump now in Keystone, I believe. So if it's not marketable, to a private individual or a company, there sure could be possible other county uses for it. And you're right, any sale of that comes right back into the seizure fund and can be used again.
I guess the only other comment that I have to make, even though I'm not sure why, but all of the bidding contractors are contractors that I regularly do work for.
Okay.
To the best of my knowledge, I haven't been contacted about bidding this, but with this type of a project, they would have put an allowance in for stairways and railings. They wouldn't have asked for bids until this thing was locked down, so.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Just a clarification on the number. I see you have 665,181 on your sheet here, on your information sheet. If you take the lower 3 bids, which you did at the top, it's 663,800.
Mr. Somerville did the math.
Oh,
You said if you take the bid, I think I understand. From the bid sheet, the price is $663,800,
right.
and this says $665.
181.
181. That difference is $1,350, something like that.
There's a difference in cost between structural steel suppliers.
Oh, I see.
There were 2 bids that everybody got, one from Jacqueline, and one from the Benzie County one, that we had some issues with before. And it was the difference between $1,381 or something. So I recommended to the contractor to use the Jacqueline price, and I added it into the 665.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other questions?
You need a fence for your storage area? Who's gonna steal from the sheriff?
Be surprised.
You'd be surprised.
Well, I would hope nobody, but
I just thought I'd toss that in.
All right. Okay, we have a motion. We have a motion and support it's a two-folded motion. One is to proceed with the purchase of the land at 69.9, and the other is the approval of the projected cost for the improvement of the property. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Max Bauer?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yeah.
Richardson?
Yes.
Stepka?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Hooper?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Fleece?
No,
Chairman Inman.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
All right. And we'll move on to the next item in our agenda is the finance report. Dean?
Starting on page 24 is the general fund trial balance through the end of August, followed by the account detail on page 25. Just a couple of points, I guess, before I would entertain questions. The revenue by source is listed on page 26, and I handed out an explanation of some of the significant variances compared to a year ago. So this is 8 months, 2010 versus 29. The taxes, the primary reason for the difference, we have higher Board of Review and MTT, Michigan Tax Tribunal adjustments, and I've indicated the amount. And then the current tax collected to date is $33,000 less than the same period a year ago. There are a number of areas here, categories where we're less than we were at the end of August of '09. However, in the case of the federal grants, state grants, and the local unit contributions, as well as the interest revenues and the transfers in, lower amounts were budgeted. So my primary concern at this point in time is with the charges for services revenue, and I just checked the accounting detail. We actually budgeted, it's showing $137,000 difference compared to a year ago. And those primary areas are the Register of Deeds at $102,000, corrections at almost $41,000, and the 911 telephone surcharge at $15,000. But one positive thing to note there is we budgeted $111,000 less for that revenue category as well. So we'll need to continue to watch the charges for services revenue. I think that's the greatest exposure that we have on the revenue side of the budget at this point.
Okay, any questions on that? All right.
Unless,
Anything?
that's all I
Anything more
have
on
to
that?
add.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the budget adjustments as outlined by the Finance Director.
Moved by Commissioner Wheelock, support by Commissioner Thomas to approve the budget adjustments as presented in the packet. Discussion?
Just a quick comment and clarification. Dean, the first one that you have, which is the redemption of the funds for the health services building,
Yes.
$300,000, that does take down our fund balance by $300,000.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Is it our fund balance or the Health Department's fund balance?
It's the county general fund balance. And that was what we had discussed, and at this point in time, we may revisit that, but those payments are due, the call date is, so I wanted to amend the budget before we made that payment, so we do need to do this at this point.
Okay, any other discussion on the budget adjustments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Moving on to the credit card request. Dean, are you going to handle that, or?
Yes. And Bill Rokas, the county treasurer, and Carol Stocking, the district court administrator, are here in case I don't do a good job with this, but I've identified the group of people that worked on this. I wanted to thank Carol. She did most of the work in finding an RFP that we could use, and she crafted that document. But it's taken us, 4 months probably to get to this point. We did send out an RFP. We received 13 proposals. Not all of those were, I guess, of equal value to us in terms of where we're at today. But we did then narrow that selection down to 3 proposals, and we brought those 3 vendors in to ask them, I guess, more detailed questions, because this is new territory for us. We're basically asking a vendor to come in and assist the departments in, having the ability to accept credit card payments. And it's not just it's not that simple because there are different ways that you can do that. The credit card rules are very complex. I will never, ever be able to understand them fully. There are interchange rates that change on I think every 3 to 6 months, but
You know they're designed that way on purpose.
we've found that out.
Those dang
But-
bankers.
But I felt really comfortable with the folks that we had looking at this, Don Sheehan, Carol, Terry Quinn, and Bill helped us with, determining what was the best route to go in terms of, we wanted to be sure that we were looking at the lowest cost. But another concern was we wanted to make sure that we complied with all of those requirements. And we had some concern over 2 of the final 3 vendors, and I guess that was why we're recommending Fifth Third. They're not only our current banking institution or financial, they're our primary bank at this point in time, but we felt that they gave us the best answers and we had the best comfort level with what they would do for us, because when when all is said and done, whether we're taking a transaction over the counter or an internet or web-based transaction, we want to be sure that we're complying with the requirements. And didn't get into a lot of detail on terms of the cost. There are some costs associated with doing this. There's not a huge consulting fee for them to come in and do the work. There will be some equipment costs that I feel are minor in nature that we can absorb in the operating budget. So we're not asking for a lot of money. We have not worked with the prosecutor yet on the review of the contract, but we're recommending that the board allow us to work with Fifth Third to come in and meet with the departments where we want to do this, and they'll help us make sure that we're doing that appropriately. We will also look at the departments that are currently taking credit card payments, construction code, Parks and Rec, to see if we can do anything different there. I'm not sure if Carol or Bill, they will help me answer any questions you might have, and that's just a brief overview.
All right, Commissioner Fleet.
What's the percentage they're quoting you?
I did not bring that detail with me, but Bill, do you remember what the rate was for property taxes, which could be a...
We're looking at...
Bill, could you come up? It'd be helpful if you could come up.
And we do have all of that information, if I just did not bring it.
Yeah, we're not looking at absorbing the cost of the credit card. We're looking at passing that on to the consumer. Mainly in my office, with the amount of money we collect in delinquent taxes, that would create a large expense for us to bear. So what we were also looking at with these vendors was what rate they would pass on to the consumer. And we wanted to get the lowest rate that we could, even though we're not paying it. We want to try to get the lowest rate for them as well, if they choose to use a credit card. In the tax area, there's different regulations for credit cards for accepting tax payments. And so the rate for that Fifth Third quoted us was 2.5%, which is, I think, that was the lowest percentage rate that of the bids that came in.
For some people, it might be worth it. They get their airline tickets.
Miles.
The other thing, just to, as Bill mentioned, and thank you for pointing that out, Fifth Third would help us establish the lowest convenience fee based on the type of transaction. For example, in the district court, transaction costs, a typical sale, so to speak, if you're looking at transactions, would determine where we would have to set that fee, and they will help us with that, because the intent here is to charge the lowest convenience fee possible so that we're not, hitting our customer with, we're not trying to profit here, but we do want to cover those transaction costs with that fee.
You should be able to, well, first of all, the 3 vendors, how did you determine who they were?
we had 3 written proposals, and they provided, what we did, we provided them with sample transactions for a number of our departments. District Court provided, a number of typical transactions. Bill provided a typical tax payment. So we gave them some sense for what our, typical transactions would be for the different offices, and then they priced those transaction or processing costs for us, so we could do an apples-to-apples comparison.
Well, I've dealt with credit card companies many years, and it's based on how much the credit card company wants to make on a transaction. And I've been with a firm now. I've never been able to have a local bank provide my credit card service at what I would call a reasonable fee, because I, unlike you, have to absorb the cost, so I watch it very closely. And there are a lot of regulations, but for example, yesterday, come October 1st, and you have no control over this if you take Discover, and Discover is probably one of the cheapest ones to take. They're increasing their fees from 1/10 to 4/10, and it depends on your average ticket and so forth, but I think that perhaps you ought to look at a few more vendors, because they'll all come in. I've never experienced where they wouldn't come in, set up the devices, instruct the employees, and if you have a problem, you just dial an 800 number, and they'll walk you right through it. And if you have a mechanical problem with, say, the pad, they'll walk you through it on the phone. Also, if you're taking the credit cards, would you be taking debits?
We could.
Because debits, see, by far, you're talking a quarter there, generally, and that's regulated by the law also.
Well, Fifth Third actually uses a third-party credit card processor, but they have done this for other governmental entities. I can't think of any specific names, but for some utility applications. And one of the reasons that we brought 3 of the vendors in, and that was based on, their proposal. In our field, that their proposal was the most responsive to the RFP that we put out. I mean, you can tell by looking through a proposal if somebody threw something together or if it was pretty detailed. And Fifth Third gave us a pretty good response, as did Huntington Bank, who was somewhat disguised as another vendor. They used Huntington because it was a local, they have a local presence here. I think it was First Data, which is a large international operation. The other vendor was GovPay, which is our current vendor in our corrections facility. But Fifth Third has experience with other governmental units, and those interchange rates, those credit card rates are going to change from time to time.
First Data, I had them for probably the last 5 years. I switched February this year because a sister company of them, and you're right, they're a huge firm, but a sister company of theirs approached me, and what they did was they were going through a bank, but they dropped the 10-cent per transaction fee. So it puts my average down to around 1.9, 2%. I very seldom pay over 2%.
Well, there were risks for the vendors here on telling us what their rates would be because they have no experience with us. Once they have a better idea of what our, I guess, book or volume of business would be, we may be able to do better pricing. I think Bill, based on, with Bill's operation, we don't know how many customers, taxpayers might want to use a credit card. So it's really hard, I think, for the vendor to get too low on that pricing because they don't know how much business we're going to get.
I would say the vendor has a much better idea than you do on how much business, because they're dealing with other units of government, and they have an experience that you don't have. I guess my first question is, I assume that a lot of these fees that we charge are set by law, and we can't take part of that and use it to pay a credit card company, correct?
Well, that is correct with any statutory fee, which, we have in the clerk's office or in the register of deeds where we are taking some credit card payments. But that is why you look at establishing the convenience fee, because to absorb those costs when you still have to remit the full amount to the state.
Well, that's true, but then what you just said was, you don't really know what the fee is going to be until you create some history for the credit card company. And having had my own experience as a businessman dealing with credit card companies, they do make this stuff as impenetrable as possible. Every type of card has a different charge and so on and so forth. I guess one of my questions is this something that we really need to do? I mean, are we losing payments because we're not making it convenient enough for people? Carol is nodding her head over there.
Carol, can you get yourself introduced and swing the microphone your way?
I'm Carol Stocking. I'm the District Court Administrator. I definitely think we lose payments because we don't accept credit card payments online. We do have a phone number, an 800 number that we give out to folks, and they can call the credit card company. We use something similar to the jail. It's a different company, but it's similar to what the jail uses. You call the credit card company, it's an 800, everything's done over the phone. All we get is a fax transmission saying that the credit card payment was made. But the customer absorbs the cost, and the fee is huge. It's huge. These people are paying $18, $19, $20 to make a payment to the court. And I know that there would be more people who would pay online. I mean, I use the example of my own children. They've had checking accounts for 4 years. They don't write checks. They don't even have paper checks. They do everything online or by debit card. And so that's the way young people operate today. So when they get a ticket, God forbid, not my kids, but some children in that age group get a ticket, they go to the county's website or the court's website, it's not offered. So in a lot of times we get, I was home for the weekend, but I'm in college in Grand Rapids. How do I pay this ticket? You're going to go to the bank and get a money order because that's all we have. So I know that we can make it more convenient and cheaper for the customer because what they're paying right now with the service we're providing is the fees are exorbitant.
Okay, well, what I would suggest is that I think you can push the processing, the credit card processing company probably harder than you've pushed because it's very, very lucrative for them. I mean, I understand that it serves the needs of the county, but I would certainly ask for more concessions. This comment about, equipment costs will be determined separately, they probably can provide that stuff for free and so on and so forth. They want to get in the door and they want the business, and don't be too quick to.
Yeah, and I do want to make a comment back to what Larry, Commissioner Fleece said. We had 13 bids, and I wanted to make sure you understood that. It wasn't that we just looked at these 3. We had 13 to start with, and we narrowed it down to the 3 that we brought in to interview. I didn't know if you heard that part.
No, I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't. But I think in response to Ross's comments, I think it's important that the county take and have the ability to take credit card payments at the most reasonable cost because what you're talking about there at the court presently is terrible.
It's terrible.
And you may even, down the road, I suppose you get a little experience, but 2.5% certainly is reasonable,
Right.
It's a heck of a lot better than 10 or 15 or 20, but I think it's an important thing to offer. And for example, you're more likely, particularly in a court issue, to get a payment for a person that's looking at where they're going to get the cash. And if they can't get a cash advance on their card, but they can pay with a card, you'll get your money, and it just saves a lot of time, a lot of money.
Right. And going back to whether we really need to do this or not, one of the things that I don't know how many other county departments or agencies will do this, but we are definitely going to integrate it with our court software system. So technically, in my vision, once the e-ticketing starts with the sheriff's department and the city police, a law enforcement officer could write a ticket. It will be downloaded to the court without a court employee having to enter that ticket. It will be entered into our system electronically. The person knows they will have that ticket. They can go online and make the payment, and the payment will go through our system electronically and print a receipt and close the case without an employee ever touching that ticket. It will be a huge time saver for our staff, both the e-ticketing and the accepting of the credit card payments online.
Okay, Commissioner Wheelock and Commissioner Friend.
In order to facilitate discussion, I'm going to move that we contract with Fifth Thirds for credit card payment processing.
Okay, is there support? All right, moved by Commissioner Wheelock, support by Commissioner Hooper to move forward with the staff recommendation as presented. Commissioner Wheelock.
I guess the comments that I make are similar to those other people that have been involved with taking credit cards for a long time. The fees per transaction and the percentages are what you have to look at. The idea whether it's a credit card or a debit card, in today's world, you can't tell the difference because, my debit card from a local bank says it's a Visa card. So I can't tell the difference. And when my customers come in and they have me scan their card, I can't tell whether it was a debit card or a credit card. But at the end of the month, when I get my fees charged by the account or by the firm, it is different. The debit cards do cost more money. It also makes a difference whether you scan the card, whether it's entered online or whether it's entered manually. You got the contractor that's got the card in his pocket and you scan it, but it's all scratched and it doesn't scan. When you hand enter it, the fees for the transaction are higher than they are if it's scanned. So, those are just little things. I think the 2.5% is probably very reasonable. Fortunately, I locked my contract down a long time ago at a much lower rate than that, and I've been very pleased, and I get calls every month with credit card companies wanting to save me money on my credit card transactions, but they can't even get close.
I think you misspoke yourself, though. You said the debit cards were higher, and it's the other way around. Debit cards are lower cost to you.
No, I think debits are higher.
No, debit cards are higher.
Because they charge you more up front.
The transaction fee is higher.
Yeah.
The percentage is the same, but the transaction fee is higher.
No, that's not correct. Debit cards by statute are like a quarter. That's what they cost the merchant.
Yeah,
Commissioner
I think it's the other way
Friend.
around.
In line with, providing more services for the people that we serve, I think that we should do something like this. Matter of fact, we've talked for a while, I think it's been the past year and a half, about ATM machines, and I think that is kind of in the same line of, offering people the most flexibility and convenience possible. And I know that when you first looked at doing ATM cards, Fifth Third being the primary banking institution that you use, was the first one that you contacted. And they were quite high on their fees, several $100s a month, I think, to do that. I believe it almost kind of tanked even looking into having an ATM machine. But then we started seeing kind of ATMs everywhere where we knew they weren't paying high monthly fees. I mean, coffee shops and other places, kind of to take a look into that. What's the status of the ATM, acquiring an ATM? And is there any possibility of approving this for a month and going back to the bank and saying, what can you do for us? Kind of trying to take up a little bit what Rob said and leveraging our purchase and say, what can you do for us with the ATM as well?
Well, let me take a stab at this. I believe Linda Colburn had brought that up at a department head meeting maybe over a year ago, and then There have been a number of meetings, Bill and myself. We're currently working with Lieutenant Monroe in the jail. We're looking at a proposal that we had received from Huntington. We just have not had a chance to
We're looking
move
at
that.
purchasing our own ATM, and that's where you're seeing them in the grocery stores or whatever. Those individual businesses are buying their own ATM and
No,
funding.
not always. I mean,
Well, not always,
you-
but
You might
that,
be right in some places, but I know Kalkaska Coliseum, they didn't pay anything for theirs, and they don't pay anything monthly.
that's not a bank-run ATM. That's actually what we were looking at, is similar to what they have in the Kalkaska.
Yeah, they're private-owned ATM machines.
Yeah,
and
they're
the company
privately owned.
Manages them.
And we were looking at putting it in the jail lobby, so it would have 24-hour access. Because if we put it in this
Secure.
building, the hours of availability are limited, and it's pretty centrally located for the courts and this building. So we are investigating that. Fifth Third was going to, they would share in the usage of that. The problem is, we don't have any history of the use of that as well, as to how much that would get used, but,
Does Fifth Third have ATMs in other government facilities,
No.
just like they use? Okay. Are you interested at all in Fifth Third providing ATM services to the county?
if it was, if we could get the cost down lower, yeah, but it looks like this other option would be a more cost-effective way for us to go.
Who's Fifth Third
Commissioner,
using as a
we-
vendor?
We got Commissioner Richardson.
What are the miscellaneous fees of approximately $400 required annually?
There were some reporting fees and an annual maintenance fee, I believe, on the equipment.
That seems a little ridiculous to me, because they're obviously getting all the processing fees. Why would they charge an extra $400 on top of that?
I did make a note. I have no problem going back with Fifth Third and asking them to absorb those equipment costs. I can't guarantee that I'll be successful in that request.
Well,
I'll make the request. And
If you suggest you might use a different processor, you might find that.
Well, you know,
Also, what about supplies? Are they supplying the paper? The paper for the machines?
I do not know.
Because that's fairly typical, even a very small business like the one I run. That's all included in the price, so.
Commissioner
Just something to think about.
Fleece, did you have a question?
I just wondered who Fifth Third's, like Huntington has First Data.
They're a large international...
It's a firm out of Grand Rapids that they pass through. I think it's Magic something.
Magic Writer?
Magic Writer.
Commissioner Max Bauer.
I'm not a business person like many of the other commissioners here, and I've never owned a business. So I have a question that, when you say credit cards, are you talking about all of them, like MasterCard, Visa, American Express, and Discover, your major credit
Yes.
cards? Okay.
But understand, each one of those cards has a different transaction fee and a different rate.
Right.
Well, it
So-
also makes a difference if it's a rewards card or
A
business.
personal card, a business card?
All of those had different rates, and that's why, at least in the tax area, we're not taking any of that. It doesn't matter what type of card they use, we would get charged, or the person would get charged 2.5%. It's that the Magic Writer or the third-party processor who's taking the risk that all the payments aren't going to be that highest rated card that comes through.
I see.
Costs are covered in that.
Well, because American Express charges more than that.
Yeah.
They charge 3.65 automatically,
I mean,
plus a transaction.
There's so many cards out there with all these different rates,
It's crazy.
it's crazy, but at least in the tax area, you can charge a flat percent, or the credit card this third party can charge that 2.5, and, you know, it doesn't, there's no cost to the county. That's what gets charged to the taxpayer, the card user. And their history is what's showing that 2.5% is going to cover all those different various charges that are getting paid or charged to them.
The 2.5% figure is just for property tax collections, right?
Correct.
Right, because
So
you
that- I mean,
can't.
that's not the figure that you've been quoted for
No, there were other
court payments and all that kind of stuff.
other suggested convenience fee levels depending on whether we were working with district court. As the transaction volume goes higher, they may recommend a higher convenience fee, but they were going to help us establish those fees.
All right, Commissioner Friend, do you have something?
Well, no, I'm supportive of the idea of having the credit cards for payments. I think it's really valuable, and I think you'll see a lot of usage on it. I also really value the process that you've gone through in determining and coming to the vendor for Fifth Third. Though I would like to just take maybe a little bit more time to go back to them and see if we can negotiate some of those costs, and also check on any movement with the ATM machine as well. So I guess I would make a motion to table for 1 month.
Is there support for the motion?
I support it.
Okay, we have a motion to table the discussion on this item for 30 days. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Thomas?
No.
Richardson?
Yes.
Stepka?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Hooper?
No.
Wheelock?
No.
Please.
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Chairman Inman?
Yes. Okay, we'll bring the item back in 30 days, and I think,
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
For staff, and I think, because Ross is right, you have a great amount of leverage, particularly with the volume that the county could do in its totality with the different departments, and it's all based on ticket average. But if you could leverage the ticket average on a countywide basis, you could probably really have some bargaining power. Number two, who's paying for the device that would allow you to take the credit card, the actual machine?
We would, unless we negotiate with Fifth Third to provide that equipment at no cost.
Okay, online, there's a company, for example, Fifth Third might charge you $700 for the state-of-the-art machine. You can go online, buy the same machine for probably $200.
Yeah, you can purchase machines instead of leasing them.
Right.
Well, that's what Fifth Third is asking you to do anyway, is to purchase a machine. So I think the suggestion is you don't have to purchase it from them.
Right.
If they want to give you a machine as part of the deal, that'd be great, but, I mean, we're talking, do you know how many machines we're talking about?
Not completely, because each department is going to be, Carol might need 2.
I think we did have that in our RFP, though,
Yeah.
based on the treasurer, the district court, the county clerk, circuit court. Who else was in our?
That
There
was
was
initially.
Yeah, that was our initial group. So we did have that number in the RFP.
And if we get this thing locked in, there's no reason we can't use that same vendor for the jail.
Oh, correct,
And save those people a whole lot of money.
correct.
And, we add that volume into the volume that we're using to leverage against Fifth Third, if they're going to be our selected vendor, we're going to look at a.
And it's hard to know what the volume will be, because right now, we don't have a lot of departments taking credit cards, and even like the jail and the district court who take credit cards, the fees are so high that it discourages people from using them. So we can't really get a good sense of what the volume will be ultimately.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the pulled item from item A, receive and file, item 1, Traverse City Brownfield Plan Amendment Update. It was information. Commissioner Richardson?
Yeah.
Please hold that item.
First of all, for purposes of discussion, I would move to receive and file the statement from
Support.
Brownfield.
Moved by Commissioner Richardson, support by Commissioner
Gene, I did
Wheelock.
have a few questions.
To receive and file, discussion? Discussion?
Oh, I had some questions
Yes, go
for
ahead.
Gene, if that's all right.
Commissioner Dixon, I also have a map that I thought would clarify.
Somebody down there.
Oh, it was Wheelhouse.
Thank you. Now, obviously, this is information only, but I see that we are going to have a public hearing on it in 2 weeks.
Jean, get yourself introduced, please.
Yes, my name is Jean Dorenzi with the Planning and Development Department. Yes, this will be going for a public hearing at your meeting at the end of this month. It's published for 7 p.m. And the plan itself, as outlined in your packet, and as I'm handing out the map today, the parcel that's outlined in red is the added parcel that will be going into this amended plan. The parcels that are outlined in blue are currently in the plan. So the amendment itself is adding the one parcel, which is the Midas property, to allow for the Indigo Hotel to be constructed.
Okay, and is there some dollar amount then that will be assigned to the parcel?
There's an additional $635,000 for the Indigo for infrastructure pieces, for demolition cost, and a little over $300,000 for environmental, specific to those 3 parcels.
Okay, that's all 3 taken together, though?
Correct.
Okay. But well, I guess my question is, was there a dollar amount already assigned to the first 2 parcels, and then did a new dollar amount be assigned to the 3rd parcel, assuming that it is added as proposed?
For the total 3 yes. For the addition of just for the hotel, there was a little over $300,000 for the original 2 parcels. But for the construction has changed now from the original brownfield plan. So for the hotel development itself and for the infrastructure for the DDA, there's going to be an underpass that's going to be part of this. And for streetscapes and street repaving, the original plan was a little over $14 million, and the new plan will go up to $15 million.
Okay, but, and this may be my problem, because maybe I don't understand how brownfield works. I mean, I think it's a concept we all struggle with. But is it the situation where each parcel gets a dollar amount, a brownfield dollar amount assigned to it, and when that parcel is developed, then that money can be used, or?
In this particular project, since there's 16 parcels, there's the $15 million is just one line item, or one figure, and it's divided into line items.
Okay.
Then we went back.
So the addition of the parcel didn't change the dollar amount of the brownfield, it just allowed, because of the development being on that parcel, it had to be part of the brownfield plan, and it wasn't before, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So it didn't change the overall dollar amounts or anything?
The overall dollar amount has went up to over $1 million.
Okay.
Because of the development itself. We did not know the Indigo Hotel would be part of it. So the underground parking, that's going to be part of this hotel development. So we have to remove some soil and do dewatering.
Okay.
So the cost itself has went up to over $1 million.
Okay, of brownfield money that'll be applied to the project.
Of brownfield money.
And that's what, once this board approves it, or I guess it's already been approved by the Brownfield Authority, right?
Correct.
And then once we approve it, then the state has to approve the increase and the addition of the parcel.
Correct.
Okay. And then my other question was about the, let me find it here. The comment that work has to start in 90 days, oh, here it is, it's in the new requirement per statute, to development must move forward within 90 days after the state's approval?
Yes. That is that's a new component with the state of Michigan, that when the state amends a brownfield plan, they being the state, wants to make sure that the community is ready to move forward and that the developments move forward. And if you don't move forward in 90 days, those approvals go away.
Okay, but that doesn't apply to previous amendments?
It would apply for previous amendments.
Okay, and what I'm thinking of, there was some rather large amendments made back in 2005 pursuant to the West Front parking deck project?
Correct.
Okay, which obviously, never moved forward on because it, was rejected by the voters, but does that mean that that amendment, is no longer good, or is that still in effect, or how does that work?
That's still in effect, that if we go down to the state of Michigan and amend this plan, and that in 90 days, if the hotel does not move forward, that amendment would go away.
Okay.
So all amendments would go away, so we would have nothing to work with. So part of the development agreement that we would have with Indigo, that they must move forward within 90 days. They have to move some dirt, start some demolition this fall. So
Okay.
it's very critical that the development must move forward.
Okay. So then on the other item, which is the taking the parking deck line item, removing that from the Traverse City Place Brownfield plan and putting it into Jerry Snowden's property across the street. So you're not even proposing that happen until you're sure that the developer is ready to move forward, is that correct?
And the reason that's in there is because this plan will come back to you, probably. It could come back in between 2 and 3 months. So you'll see this amended again for the parking deck line item to be moved out of this plan into a new plan.
Okay.
So, but the timing's really important because of the new criteria that the state put in.
So basically, when we see the actual amendment for the Jerry Snowden property, then we will know that he has to start moving forward within 90 days.
He or the city.
He or the city on the parking deck. Okay.
Right.
Okay, that was pretty much all my
Commissioner
questions.
Maxbauer.
I have a question. You mentioned that the development has to move forward within 90 days, and you used the words "move dirt." The West Front Street project moved dirt, but there's a hole. It did not complete itself.
Right.
If this project starts moving dirt and leaves a hole there, does that count as moving forward within 90 days? I mean, could we end up with a hole there?
Every project is at risk based on the economics, on whether it will move forward or not, and that they can construct. But I want to remind you that the 90-day requirement from the state is a new requirement, and that was not previously there. So if that happened this year, would the approval go away? I'm not sure. But that's why I would be working with the state, saying what would happen, and when would you take that back? If we remove a tank, is that enough movement for you? Or do you need some increased tax base for the approvals not to go away? It's going to be a very important component for both the city and the developer to know what the state's requirements are when they would take that approval away.
Okay.
All right, any other questions?
You mentioned
Mr.
after
Friend.
we see it, it's 90 days. Actually, it's after the state approval, it's 90 days, right?
After the state approval.
The state's approval.
Any other questions on the motion to receive and file?
Has the city approved this plan amendment?
Their concurrence, they had it in a study session on Monday, and their concurrence is on Monday, the 20th.
Anything else? We have a motion to receive and file. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. All right, thank you, Gene. Next item is unfinished business. We have none declared. Next item after that is new business. We have no items under that item. Second, public comment. Members of the public are not here unless Mr. Rokas has something. Okay. So we'll move on to committee reports. Commissioner Wheelock and then Fleece.
Mr. Chairman, I am passing a letter to each of you, the commissioners. This letter, basically says, my fellow commissioners, is dated September 10th. This letter is official notification that Wheelock & Sons Welding Incorporated has been contracted by RT Cole Incorporated for the custom fabrication and powder coating of the handrails for the governmental center stairway. As you will recall, I've been upfront and open about this possibility and have abstained from discussion and voting on this project. But I do need to give you official notification that I am contracted to do that project. The contract is between RT Cole and Wheelock & Sons, but you do need the official
Okay.
notification,
We'll
and
give
I believe this meets the requirement.
Okay, and we will give a copy of that to administration.
Yep.
Commissioner,
I faxed it to them
please.
yesterday.
Monday night, I attended Mayfield Township's monthly board meeting, and regarding the injections, well, what they voted was to amend the zoning ordinance with section 10.03, which deals directly with injection wells, and they have checked with the state and federal regulatory agencies, and they discovered that there wasn't any prohibition for the township to establish its own ordinances. So this is what they've done, and they still haven't received any decision from the DNRE or the EPA. So they are working on this ordinance, and I think it's really a step in the right direction. And last night, Dick and I were at Blair, and we passed the information along to Blair and suggested that they perhaps take a look at it. And Bill Crane was there, and he was going to give them a copy of the ordinance. But I think it's important maybe in your travels to talk about that and have them contact Mayfield Township, or like Bill Crane's actively involved in that too, and they can use this to establish an amendment to their zoning ordinance. But I think if we do that, kind of like when the townships got involved with the sexually orientated businesses, they were behind the ball there. Well, here, they're actually, I think, ahead, and I'm really happy to see that happen.
Don't the federal and state supersede local ordinances?
I don't think when it comes to zoning, no. And see, there's no applicable law right now.
Commissioner Max Bauer.
I just wanted to let the commissioners know that I received an unsigned letter in my mail regarding employee buyouts, and if you haven't seen it already, I had Sarah make a copy of it for everyone, so if you haven't seen it, it should be in your mailbox. And also, I called Chief Parker on the fire education budget, and I asked him to provide me with an outline of that budget, and he was kind enough to do so at last night's Garfield Township Board meeting, and I gave that to Dean this morning, and you will all receive copies of that as well.
Commissioner Richardson.
As long as we're talking about the budget, and our next meeting will be on Monday, when we will be having another special meeting on the budget. I noticed another cost that had not been figured, and specifically what this is the cost of unemployment. Grand Traverse County is self-insured, and anybody we lay off, we are on the direct hook for the cost of unemployment benefits for those employees.
Okay, good point.
Right. We've had that discussion.
Any other reports? I'm hearing none. We'll move on to notices and announcements, and as you have in your packet, we have a budget meeting on the 20th, and if need be, the 21st and the 22nd. Any other announcements? Hearing none, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, moved by Friend, support by Hooper. We stand adjourned.